everyone, it's Shar. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. It is mid-June, and that means it's time for the mid-year book freakout tag. This is so fun for me because this was actually one of the first videos that I ever filmed, so to film this a year later is going to be interesting just to see how my reading taste has changed. If you don't know what this is a very popular book tag in the bookish community. Always around June, July time, we sit down and we tell you about the books that we've read so far. There are 14 questions, so without further ado, I'm gonna jump on in. So the first question is the best book of the year so far. For me, that's a very easy answer. That is These Fleeting Shadows by Kate Alice Marshall. I read this in June. These Fleeting Shadows is a YA horror about this young girl. She's actually in her late teens. She is living with her mother and her stepfather, and she receives word that her grandfather has passed away. So she and her family go up to her late grandfather's estate, and while they're there, they receive word that our main character actually has inherited everything. The estate, the house, the land, everything. But the condition for her to inherit this property is to stay on the land, to stay in the house with the family for 1 year. Her mother is against this because all they know is that they fled the house when our main character was very, very young. This is a sapphic story. She falls in love with a witch in the story. It has a lot of magical realism in true Kate Alice Marshall style. It's spooky and I totally just blanked on the word for that. It's magical realism is, I think, what I want to say. I absolutely love this. It goes in a direction that I fully was not expecting. And the thing about this house is obviously that it's haunted. She doesn't know this family. There are secrets being kept, and there's a rule that she can't leave the house after a certain time. It's a creepy gothic story, and I absolutely loved it. I would be surprised if this wasn't a favorite book of the entire year at the end of the year, but we'll see. The best sequel that I've read this year, there are two answers to that. The first one is The Bride Test by Helen Huang. This is the sequel to The Kiss Quotient. It's part of the same world. In this one, we're following Kai and we're following Esme. Esme lives in Vietnam, and Kai's mother comes to Vietnam essentially to look for a bride for Kai. Esme is not applying for the position, but she runs into Kai's mother and somehow ends up being chosen, and she has to go to America, and she has the summer to fall in love with Kai, and they have the summer to fall in love with each other, and then they have to get married by August. So this is obviously their story. The thing is, Kai has no idea that his mother has gone to Vietnam to get a bride. So that's the story. I really love this, and I would say it is one of the better sequels. I gave this 4 stars because I felt like there were some aspects of the story that really needed more time and more exploration. The second option is in a completely different direction, and that is A Soul to Touch by Opal Rain. This is the third book in the Duskwalker Bride series. This is a post-apocalyptic world where during the Industrial Revolution, a rip opened up in the space-time continuum, opening the doors to a fae and demon world, and the human realm was completely attacked by ravenous base level demons, and that is what's been going on for the past couple of hundred years. In A Soul to Touch, we're following our main character, Mayumi. Mayumi is a hunter. She hunts demons to try to protect small pockets of human society, but she had a run-in with a Duskwalker when she was younger, and she's always felt a deep connection to him. Of course, he reappears in her life, and this is them, I'll say their love story. There's love there. This is them fucking. That's what this book is about. They bang a lot. I really enjoyed this book, and I've spoken about it so much. What I'm going to emphasize here is if you do not already read monster romance, don't read this book, because you're going to be shocked, you're going to be horrified, and there were even moments for me where I was like, how nasty of you! Damn. A new release I haven't read yet, but I really want to. I have 2 options for it, and I realize the book is literally right across from me behind you, but it's The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I have been looking forward to this all year. I had it on pre-order, so it got delivered the day it was released, but I'm in a freaking reading slump right now. It is literally almost the end of June. I've read zero books. I've read nothing, okay? nothing. But once the reading slump is over, I will be reading that book. All I know about this book is that it is a woman who's just completed her PhD program. I believe she's trying to apply for positions, and she's really broke. Like, as a PhD student, she has no money. After graduating and having no job, she has no money. So she does a fake dating agency where essentially people can hire her to be their fake girlfriend or their fake date for events. She gets hired by this man, but this man's brother is on the hiring committee for the role that she's trying to go for. And I believe it's a love story between the brother, not the brother that hired her, the brother on the hiring committee, and our main character. I just love Allie Hazelwood's writing, so I'm super excited to read this. And the second book is a sequel, the third or fourth, I think it's the fourth book in Kimberly Lemming's That Time I Got Drunk and blank blank blank, which I've really loved. This one is That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human. So we're in a dragon shifter's perspective where our human woman has been taken. She is in this castle and Mr. Dragon comes and saves her. I just love this series so much. It is cozy fantasy. It is very steamy. It's just like a very campy world, and it's something that I read for the fun of it. I just find it very enjoyable and very comforting read. I also have 2 answers for this question. I'm sorry, besties. So this is, what's my most anticipated release for the second half of the year? There are a ton of books I'm looking forward to, but the 2 that stick out to me is number 1, Dead of Winter by Darcy Coates, which is coming out in July, I believe. It's coming out very soon. I'm super excited to read this book just because it's Darcy Coates. Darcy Coates to me is like the queen of cozy horror, but don't let the cozy thing confuse you. She can bring the scare factor. You can be terrified. And I recently read The Shuddering by Anya Alborn. I didn't love that book, but I love Darcy Coates' writing style, and it's a similar kind of premise where a group of people are going up for a skiing trip or a snowboarding trip. I don't know. They find themselves in a very cold, isolated setting in the woods, and of course things go wrong. Now, Darcy Coates, as I mentioned, is known for being cozy horror, but I've heard this book steers a little bit away from the cozy and leans really heavily into the horror. I'm hoping this comes out in time for Summerween, because if it does, I will be purchasing immediately. And then my second book that I'm really looking forward to comes out in September. This is The Marble Queen. I am looking forward to this book so stinking much. Number 1, it's sapphic, and let me tell you the premise. This is a graphic novel, right? And we have 2 feuding kingdoms, and in order to form an alliance, try to get some good faith, they are doing an arranged marriage. So the princess or someone in the royal family from this kingdom, right, goes and she believes that she's marrying the prince of this other nation to have this peace agreement, but it's not the prince. She's actually marrying the queen. That is literally right up my street, and again, I will be purchasing immediately as soon as this book comes out. Biggest disappointment of the year, Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Wissner. I didn't even finish this book. If you saw my sapphic romance reading vlog, then you'll know that I tried to read this book and I got pretty far into it, but I just couldn't. So Mistakes Were Made is the story of this woman in college. It's her senior year of college and it is family weekend. She doesn't have a relationship with her family, so she always finds this weekend hard. Instead of being on campus with everybody else, she decides to go off campus and to go hang out at a bar. While she's at the bar, she sees this gorgeous older woman. They have immediate chemistry and they hook up. She thinks she's never gonna see this woman again, but the very next day, her best friend invites her to breakfast, and her best friend's mom is the woman that she hooked up with. Now that should sound like my thing. Like that premise, the taboo nature of it being sapphic, I'm like, hell yeah. Plus, I've loved Meryl Wissner's previous book. This book did not work for me because our characters felt kind of two-dimensional. I didn't believe the motivation behind their reasoning to want to be in a relationship. It was purely sexual. There was no emotional connection. I'd never believed that these 2 characters had enough of a reason to fight for each other. And our main character felt extremely immature considering the fact that she was supposed to be a senior in college. And yes, at 21, 22, you still definitely have your immature moments and you are allowed to try to figure things out. out, but considering the very significant age gap between our two characters, I'm gonna need this character to be very, very mature for me to understand why someone who's nearly in their 40s would want to go with a 21-year-old. The biggest surprise. I'm gonna go with surprise in a good way. This is The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. This was a surprise because it genuinely was not on my radar whatsoever, but I saw it on Pango Books and I picked it up. Plus it was a literally dead book club pick, so I decided I wanted to participate and I just picked this book up on a whim. In this book, we are following a woman who is a writer. She has been having a hard time writing, and she and her ex-best friend both had this like love and obsession with this feminist horror novelist named Rosa. Rosa hosts a writing retreat, and through a series of circumstances, both of these women get the opportunity to be at this house, even though they are no longer speaking. The whole idea is that they need to write an entire manuscript by the end of the retreat, and the best manuscript gets a 6-figure publishing deal. That's something they all want. Being published is very difficult, so they go for it. There's somewhat of a competitive nature, but they're in a house with a very dark history. They're trapped in a snowstorm, and someone's gone missing. And the more time they spend here, the more they realize that Miss Rosa is a bit unhinged. So I absolutely love this. I'm gonna tell you right now, it is camp. Don't go in here expecting like the most genius twist you've ever seen. It's supposed to be ridiculous. In my mind, I even compared this to things that people do in The Sims. The plot is literally something that people do in The Sims, but I really, really enjoyed it. I loved the campy nature of it. You all know that I love an absolutely wild ending that just goes for it. It is sapphic. We have a lot of sapphic undertones. It's very sexual in its nature as well. The sexual part of it is part of the plot and Rosa's character. I gave this book 4 stars, and it's a surprise just because I really didn't have any expectations for it, and I was honestly kind of expecting to have meh feelings, and I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. A favorite new author. Now, I thought about putting Kate Alice Marshall on this list just because I love These Fleeting Shadows so much. It's literally my bread and butter, but I couldn't do it because I've been reading Kate Alice Marshall's backlist and I have not found another hit to this point. I know, yes, I did read Rules for Vanishing and it still wasn't a hit. It was a 3-star read. Yikes, bestie. So, since that's obviously my problem, I am choosing Anya Alburn and Rachel Lacey. So Anya Alburn just writes horror stories, which I've really enjoyed. I've read 2 of her books so far. I've read The Shuddering and I read If You See Her. I loved If You See Her, and The Shuddering was a fun time. So I've just really enjoyed her horror writing style. And then also Rachel Lacey, who is the author of Stars Collide. Rachel Lacey typically writes sapphic stories. I absolutely love Stars Collide so much, and I can't wait to read some more of her books. Newest fictional crush, none other than Miss Eden from Stars Collide by Rachel Lacey. So Stars Collide is the story of 2 mega famous pop stars. We have Eden, who is the biggest pop star in the world. She has a massive fan base. She's doing another stadium tour. She's just released a new album, but the album is kind of flopping. Eden feels like she's in a rut. She's having a hard time in life right now. Her fans are sensing that, and people are claiming that she's kind of losing the spotlight and she won't stay relevant forever. But Eden's not going to stand for that, so her agent suggests that she collaborates with an up-and-coming artist named Anna, who is very popular, who has a very devoted fan base, and who could, let's say, they could mutually benefit from working with each other. So she and Anna collaborate at the Grammys Music Award, and they have a great time. It's received well. It has very positive reviews. They have great chemistry, and Eden invites Anna to be the opening act on her stadium tour, and they fall in love. They fall in love. I love this book so much. If you can't tell by my cheesy ass grin, it was just the cutest time, and I loved Hollywood books. I love the whole music setting and them falling in love while they're on tour and navigating fame together, and it was just precious, precious, precious. Eden has to be my crush because I loved Eden. Eden was my type. And I was like, Yes, I will. I will absolutely adore Eden. Newest favorite character, none other than Ben Stevens from While We Were Dating by Jasmine Guillory. While We Were Dating is another Hollywood story, in case this isn't giving it away. Ben Stevens is an advertising executive and he has a campaign for a cell phone like commercial shoot. They end up landing Anna as their actress for these commercials, and while they're working together, they have a pretty instant sexual chemistry. They decide that they kind of want to explore that together. Anna's agent gets word of this and says that they should fake date because people love Ben and it would be great for like media because Anna is trying to get a Grammy. And this is a story of them fake dating, but as you know, fake dating leads to real feelings. Ben is my perfect soft boy. I love Ben so much. I love a romance where the man is just worshiping the ground she walks on. There's so much mutual love and respect between each other. Ben is a man who goes to therapy. Ben is ambitious and sweet and kind and self-aware. He is struggling with anxiety. He's working on his family connections. He's compassionate and understanding. And if I can just tell you, Ben is that's a lot to say, but he's so cute. I loved Ben so much. Honestly, I would have dated Ben. Like, this was very much me self-insert while I was reading this, because Ben is that man. A book that made me cry. There's only one answer to this, although I'm sure that I've cried many times at books and I'm just not remembering it because I'm emotionally stunted right now. But anyway, the book that I remember making me cry because I vlogged it was Migrations by Charlotte McConaughey. This is one of the older books that I had on my TBR. I was fully going into this expecting kind of like a murder mystery or a thriller. This is closer to literary fiction or even like climate horror very loosely. So in this world, our entire ecosystem is collapsing and people are struggling, species are dying out. The only thing that's really left are some species of birds and then the animals that are kept as pets or the animals that are farmed for food. So in this book, we're following our main character who convinces a team of fishermen to take her on their boat so she can track the migration patterns of these birds, and you just learn more about her story, what led her up to the point, and it's very obvious that she's keeping secrets. So as the story unfolds, you know more about her past and what was going on. This book was just heartbreaking. Our character goes through a lot of tragedy and I can't tell you why it made me cry, but just know that I absolutely sobbed at the end of this book. And on the other end of the spectrum, a book that made me really happy. A book that made me happy was Cheer Up, Love and Pom Poms by Crystal Fraser. This is a graphic novel. It's YA about these two high school girls and their stories. So one of our characters is obviously in high school. She's thinking about college. And while she has really spectacular grades, her counselor says, you have no extracurricular activities. I think that in order to build up your background and to help you with admissions, you should participate in some extracurricular activities and join some clubs. Her mom used to be a cheerleader, so her mom encourages her to join the cheerleading team. So she does, where her ex-best friend is the cheer captain. And that introduces us to our second character, the cheer captain, who is a trans girl. She is the first trans girl on her cheerleading team, let alone the one to be captain. This is the story of them, of course, rekindling their friendship and falling in love, but also the friends who support them and our main character's feelings about being on the cheer team and the pressure that she feels being a trans girl, people viewing her as a role model or fetishizing her, and all of the unintentional ways they harm her and how she navigates that. And I just really love this book. It is very cozy, it's very cute, it's very heartwarming, it has heartbreaking moments. Ultimately, I would say the tone of this book is hopeful and joyful. The most beautiful book I've acquired this year. You all know I have a thing about collecting special editions, which is, you know, a bad habit, but I'm a Libra and I like my shelves to look pretty and I like staring at them, and that's not a fucking joke. Yes, I do sit on my couch and look at my books as I'm in a reading slump. So this one is more for sentimental reasons in that it's Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo and it's the Waterstones edition. Number one, I love this edition so much. It's really relevant to the story. Number two, look at how gorgeous that artwork is. The little compass on the cover. Just look at that. Look at that. So I didn't even know that Waterstones had this edition. So this book is special to me because I was able to find it on Pango Books for a very reasonable price. And number two, I absolutely loved Hellbent. While it's not my favorite book of the year, it's one of my favorites. And this book is just gorgeous. And I'm so glad that I own a copy of it. It sits on my shelf and it will continue to sit on my 5-star favorite shelves once I, reorganize my bookshelves. 13th question. Books I need to read this year. The honest answer is my entire TBR. I set one major reading goal this year, and that was to read down my priority TBR shelf, which if you've seen any of my videos or my thumbnails, it's the bookshelf that sits over here. It's like this big old bookshelf, which I love, but it's full of books that I haven't read yet. So truthfully, my entire TBR is what I need to read by the end of the year. I know I won't get to every book, but if I can read down at least most of it, I'll be happy. And I don't really care which books I read off of that shelf, so long as I'm reading off of that shelf. And our final question, favorite book to movie adaptation. Besties, I don't watch movies based on books that I've read. Yes, I am that bitch. Like, I'm sorry. I don't typically love movies, so it's just not important to me. I don't care. But my answer to this question is Across the Spider-Verse. They're based on the Spider-Man comics. Come on. I think that should count. Across the Spider-Verse is a cinematic masterpiece. The animation, mind-boggling. All of the artistic styles, incredible. And of course, my little romantic heart is very appeased. Am I mad that I have to wait till March of next year? Yes, I am. But I still love that movie, and that's the answer to the question. So that's it. That is the mid-year book freakout tag. If you want to do this video, all of the questions are in the description box of this video. Let me know if you've read any of these books or if you ever have any recommendations for me, especially something to help me out of this slump. Please, besties. It's been weeks. I haven't read anything but fan fiction, and that's how you know it's bad. I'm back on AO3. But as always, thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you would like to, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!